Next message in Ephesians chapter 4 focuses on one verse, and that is Ephesians 4 and verse 7. One of the things that brings, as it says here, the total unity and the maturity in the body of Christ. One of the things that brings Christians together is not just the characteristics of unity, humility, gentleness, patience, forbearance, or forbearing one another in love, and keeping the unity and making every effort. It's not just the fact that we are one. I read that in the last video in verses 4 to 6. It's the fact that God has given to every Christian a spiritual gift, verse 7. But to each one of us grace has been given us as Christ apportioned it. And this is something which is taught in the New Testament. And a number of passages which deal with it. Romans chapter 12, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, here in Ephesians chapter 4, and then again in 1 Peter chapter 4. There, of course, we're told the purpose of our spiritual gift in 1 Peter 4. It is that God will be glorified through Jesus Christ. Because God has given spiritual gifts to Christians, the ability to do supernatural things, to build up the body of Christ. That is something that has been given to God, and it's given to every Christian the moment they become a Christian. What I want to notice here in verse 7, a number of things. Having just said in verses 4 to 6 of the ground of unity, we talked about that last time, the oneness of Christians, one body, one spirit, and so on, one Lord, one baptism, one God and Father of all. And there, the idea is of unity. Here, when we come to verse 7, the idea is of diversity. And later on, when we get down to verse 16, and also in verse 13, until we all reach unity in the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature. So later on, he'll speak about maturity. But here we've got diversity in verse 7. To each one of us has been given as Christ apportioned it. So here we see that Christ has given every Christian a spiritual gift. Now we know he then quotes from the Psalms, quoting of when he ascended on high, he took many captives and gave gifts to his people. And then later on, specifically in Ephesians, he talks about the gifts. So Christ himself, verse 11, gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastor, teachers, to equip, and that's the purpose of the gift. People for the works of service, the body of Christ, when they build up till we all reach for unity and the faith and maturity. But here I want to focus on verse 7, and that is, the first thing is to each one of us. That means every Christian has been given a spiritual gift. And of course, the challenge is then to find out what your spiritual gift is. Sometimes it's very hard to know what your spiritual gift is, but over time, and with God's grace, and with the help of other Christians, and with your own prayer and dedication to serving God, God will reveal to you personally the spiritual gift that you have been given, and then we're to use that gift to help other Christians to grow, and really it is a team effort. All the gifts are equally important. So a gift could be the gift of giving. You may not have a particular gift of going to visit the sick, but you could have a gift of giving, and that gift is equally as good as the gift of going to visit the sick for encouragement and to get alongside and pray with other Christians. It's equally as important as teaching the word, or being a pastor or an elder, whatever expression you want to be, a shepherd. All of the gifts are needed equally. Helps, and so on, and organizational gifts and so on, they're all equally important. But here I want you to see it says that Christ has apportioned it in verse 7. And so we're given the gifts by Christ, and he has apportioned the gift. Most Christians have more than one gift. if you look carefully at the New Testament, it would suggest strongly that most Christians have a portion of gifts. So a Christian may be portioned in 2 or 3, spiritually gifted in 2 or 3 areas. And I believe God gives us different gifts, but also with the focus on our spiritual gift and develop that gift. Remember, Paul had to say to Timothy in 2 Timothy, I think it is chapter 1, when he was writing his last letter to Timothy, this was one of the things that Paul wrote to Timothy to remember, and that's why that particular letter is so important. This I finished 2 Timothy chapter 1. Paul is writing, and he says this in verse 6. For this reason I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God which is in you through a laying on my hands. And maybe you or I needs to hear that today. Fan into flame the gift of God which is in you. Every Christian has a spiritual gift. Don't let it die like a fire going out with no fuel. Fan it into flame and use it for God's glory and for building up other Christians, so we can all grow in that maturity read of in Ephesians chapter 4. Thank you for listening.